All right, hello. We are doing tied to the track related to student tracking classes like standard honors and gifted with Cooper Beard, Casey Schreck, Jacob Wan, and Matthew Barich.
All right. So, what is academic tracking? So, academic tracking starts at a young age, typically like elementary school, middle school area. And basically, what it does is a series of tests that determines your intelligence level in a specific areas, such as language arts, science, maths, etc. And what this does is it puts kids on a predetermined track. So, for example, if a kid was really proficient in language arts, they'd put them in a higher language arts track. And if they did poorly on math, they'd put them on a lower math track. This basically shapes for the entire of their middle school and high school experience. This practice is very common amongst public schools in the United States. And like I said, it just separates kids into different groups. So, poor students feeling the impacts. So, impoverished kids have less resources in comparison to kids that are more wealthy. And for this reason, have less resources. What this means is they don't have the opportunities that a lot of kids have, like tutoring, extra books, extra time because they might have to work a job or something like that. And because that, it automatically puts them at automatic disadvantage. How could they have the same advantage as a kid who has more time and more money, and more resources to put towards their education? And for this reason, it puts kids at a specific demographic at a disadvantage. Studies show that white kids and Asian kids are much more likely to be put on a higher track in comparison to Latino and African American kids. And in our school system, we should not promote this sort of racial inequality. Well, this is not what we need to be teaching our kids, and we don't need kids thinking that just because they're Latino or in a lower social status, that they are lesser than them. And once again, leads to inaccurate stereotypes. Finally, it keeps kids in the cycle of poverty. When you give kids less resources, they're going to not do as well in school and be put on a lower track. And for this reason, they're going to be lower paying jobs. Studies show that more higher educated persons have higher salaries. And this is not what we need. We need to break kids out of the cycle of poverty. We don't need to constantly keep it going just because they don't have the resources necessary to get the education needed to be on a higher track.
Hard to catch up. With academic tracking, students are usually stuck in the same path throughout their middle and high school years. For students who are stuck in an inferior academic track, it may be impossible for them to advance up and catch up with the rest of the students. Studies show that students in inferior academic tracks usually have reduced achievement and have increased gaps compared to their peers. Additionally, academic tracks provide less academic freedom for students. For example, if a student wants to take a certain class, they may not be able to because of their track, which overall just discourages student growth. And that's something we don't want in schools.
So another major problem with this is poor self-esteem in the kids in the lower track. These kids in the lower track might view themselves as inferior to the gifted kids, even though that was set when they were all, could be very young, could be elementary age. This is 20% of these students in these lower classes have a mental illness, which obviously is not a good thing for setting them up with a mental illness that early in their life. Students may feel that it's impossible to catch up to these gifted peers, even though the difference between them might be very insignificant. It's just how they were set up many years ago. Mental health issues will increase if you continue to put more kids in these tracking courses at a young age. It encourages narrow thinking, even with the students, thinking they're set up for not success because they're put in standard classes, even though they should have the same opportunities and chances of success as someone in a gifted class. Even the teachers might treat them differently for being in a standard class compared to a gifted class.
So what can be done instead? Instead of having a path that is predetermined that puts kids on a path towards either advanced academics or lower level academics, having a balanced and tailored approach to each student is the way forward. So this curriculum wouldn't be based off of your elementary school scores or something like that, where you're required to be on that path from all the way up until you graduate high school. This curriculum is based off of students' strengths and weaknesses. So, for example, if you're really strong at math, you may have a curriculum that's tailored towards, more advanced math. If you're not so strong at reading, you may have, a path that helps you out a little bit more with reading. So this puts students kind of in a more personalized approach instead of having, just an advanced path or a less advanced path or a regular path. Which this eliminates the one size fits all approach because everyone has kind of curriculum and an education that's balanced towards an individual. And this also eliminates a stereotypical approach. And what I mean by that is instead of having like the common narrative these days where, white students are more advanced or have a higher, are in higher level classes, or saying that, Latino students or lower social classes are, in lower, classes. This allows students to kind of break those narratives and have more balance between your schools in terms of who's in what class. And instead of having a one size fits all approach to learning, this allows all students to succeed. So there's gone are the days of students that are on one determined path. Each student's going to be able to succeed based off their strengths and weaknesses. So in conclusion, putting a child on a track is detrimental to learning. For learning, this means, in the short and long term. In the short term, this means that they may not be harnessing their full potential. In the medium term, this means that their future outside of, after high school may be, at risk depending on what their track is. And what I mean by that is if you're on a more advanced track or if you're on a higher level track, your chances of going to an elite university or even a university at all, those chances are hindered if you're on a lower track compared to a higher track. So your medium term in terms of your college chances may be in balance because of what track you're on, but also in the long term this means that your income, what job you have, your earning potential, and just your overall potential as an adult may be at risk because of I'm on a lower path or I'm on a higher path. So having not a one size fits all approach and having a personalized learning experience that will allow students to harness their full potential. Child tracking can also have permanent consequences, which also means which means continuing the stereotypical approach that some assume with certain races or certain groups of people. And also tracking puts students in an inferior position. If you're on a lower track, it's very hard to kind of get out of that track and move into the advanced track, even if you're smarter than where you actually are. Being in an inferior position, it's really hard to kind of catch up to the other students. And also tracking can put students at risk. So what I mean by that is with 20% of all students suffering from a mental health disorder, that means that those students, those symptoms and those anxiety and mental health disorders may be exacerbated by child tracking in terms of what track you're on. And all in all, a better way to eliminate this, all these negatives is to have a balanced curriculum which plays to your strengths and weaknesses. So instead of having a one size fits all approach, really having a tailored curriculum is the way forward. So this is our works cited, and after that, it's all in all. Just want to thank you all for listening to our presentation about why child tracking for academics in school is the wrong way forward.